Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Nearly 6 months on from the Grenfell Tower fire, and more than 100 households from the area are still living in temporary accommodation. 13-year-old Yusa Cherbika's flat at the foot of Grenfell Tower was damaged, so she and her family have been moved out, and like many others, they will never return to the place they called home. Since the fire, she has lived in a hotel room, waiting to be moved into their new accommodation. She's made a music video with her friend Johara Manasa about life since the disaster and losing friends in the fire. I spoke to both of them in what for Yusra is now home, her hotel room. That's your little brother, 1 year old.
Yeah.
But there was a picture of Fedor's.
Yeah.
And you know that I gave her a prize.
Yeah.
For debating.
Yeah.
She was in your class?
Yeah.
I wish that you were still here. Why did you have to die? Why did they care about money before my best friend's life? So
And you're really singing about Fedor's?
Yeah, and like all of our friends.
And all your friends who died?
Yeah, but
I watched Grenfell Tower burn down. So put it in all.
You're walking all around your neighborhood, yeah?
yeah.
Do you miss it? And when did you make this?
Well, we wrote it 3 days after the. Like,
Did you?
Yeah, because we just wanted to let everything out. Like, we wrote it here as well. Like we just came in, we came to the room and we just wrote something down and then we just made it into a song. It took us 5 minutes. We just let everything out.
Really?
Yeah.
All your emotions fell out in 5 minutes and you wrote it all down?
Yeah.
2 small rooms are a squeeze for Yusra, her 2 brothers and her parents. The clutter of living is everywhere. A long run of toothbrushes. No kitchen, just takeaways. I talked to Yusra and her friend Johara about how they feel now. Yusra, 6 months on, do you feel that you've come to terms with what happened?
No, I don't think I ever will, to be honest with you. Because, like, I don't know, just to see that, like, what I saw, like, a block of flats that was so close to home, like, that I've known my whole life.
Your whole life?
Yeah, that I've, like, lived next to my whole life, and, like, my friends lived in there, and, like,
we used to play football in the pitches.
Yeah, we used to play knockdown ginger inside the tower. So
you feel you will always have it in your life?
Yeah.
Walking past it in the morning, it's still painful. You know, when they do knock it down, it's like looking out the window and just like seeing some empty space.
Yeah.
It's not going to be the same. It's just going to know that a tower used to be there when my friends died in. So.
Yeah, it's never gonna.
How has schooling been? I mean, have you been able to pick up where you left off?
No, it's been difficult. Like, just like everything just comes back into your head. Like seeing an empty space where you know like your friend should be there, sitting in that.
In the desk next to you.
In the desk next to you, yeah. It's hard.
Or in form class.
Yeah, in your form class.
And the girl that I knew, Fedor's, what was she like in class?
She was smart.
She was smart, but then no one really knew that she was naughty and cheeky.
Yeah, she was.
Naughty and cheeky?
Yeah, she wasn't, not in a horrible way.
Like, in a horrible way, like...
She was just...
But you called her the human...
Calculator. Yeah, she was just so smart. Like, every single time our teacher would answer a question, her hand would be the only one.
Shoot up like a...
Yeah, she was very smart. Like, she could have been anything that she wanted to be. Yeah.
What do you want to be when you grow up?
Like Fedor's, kind of.
Like Fedor's?
Yeah. I don't know, like, she was just smart. Like, I don't know. Like, when I'm older, I want to be... I want to speak for my rights, kind of. Like, this has been an eye-opener. Like, and I want to buy my own house, so I don't have to rely on the council to give me anything.
And what's it like living in 2 rooms so small?
Hell. Like, you've got a baby that's running around everywhere, picking up everything. Then
That's your baby brother, age 1?
1 year old, yeah.
So he wasn't even able to walk when he came here.
He was just
now he
crawling.
can run about.
Yeah. Yeah, and then he had to sleep on the floor until like my mum had to get him a cot and everything. So, and then I've got my 9-year-old brother. He's just active. He's a boy. So there's nowhere. This is just it. This is like,
everything he sees, he just kicks.
Yeah, he just living in like a box. Like this is the size of someone's room, and this is what we call home now. So yeah, it's hard, really, really hard. And then.
But you've got a house, possibly.
Yeah.
If it all goes through.
Yeah.
Do you like the look of it?
Yeah, but I don't know. Because I don't know, to be honest with you, I don't trust anyone, because I don't trust anyone anymore. So I don't know, I'm not going to get my hopes up too much. Just talk to me a bit about your day. I mean, you get up in this tiny room. Yep. And then what? It's quite, to be honest, quite embarrassing. Like I get changed here and do everything and get my stuff ready for school, and then I go downstairs and I wait for the taxi. But then just to sit there and like have your uniform on when there's people from like, other countries coming in, and like them being aware that. Because this is a very big hotel. Yeah, there's a lot. And there are people from everywhere. Yeah, from everywhere, literally. Like, and sometimes like they click, and so a couple of people asked me like if I knew people from the tower, and if I didn't, like what, asking me, and it's quite embarrassing, to be honest with you. What's it going to be like for Christmas then? I mean, I don't celebrate Christmas, but
because they're Muslims.
Yeah, but I can see that like the other trip, like, but I've spent Eid here, and it's not nice. Like usually we'll have like a big like feast and everything, and we'll like just
what, like for Eid.
Yeah,
like a Christmas dinner.
Yeah, it's kind of. But like
they have like a breakfast and dinner.
Yeah, and then like all the family come, but then we didn't do this year. We've had 2 Eids here, but then I can't imagine what it's going to be like for the like Christians, like not having a tree or anything, like, and then having to open their presents in like a room like this small. So it's not nice. Yeah.
Yusra Cherbika speaking to me earlier today, and tomorrow night the arts group Grenfell Voices will be staging an anniversary event in West London at which the girls' film will be shown in full.
6 months ago, after the fire at Grenfell Tower, I interviewed the Prime Minister. Theresa May promised the residents they would be rehoused within 3 weeks. 2 weeks before Christmas, more than 100 households are still in hotel rooms. So where have things gone wrong? The council's allocated huge sums of money for rehousing. Kensington and Chelsea have set aside £235 million to secure accommodation for the people made homeless by the fire. So why is it stalling? David Grossman reports.
Justice for Grenfell!
Justice for Grenfell!
No justice!
No peace!
No justice!
No peace!
This protest outside the council offices last week was only a fraction of the size of the ones in the summer.
They live in a second trauma because they are not considered worthy enough to be given housing.
The focus of this is to demand permanent new homes for the survivors.
Well, there are still people stuck in hotels with their children. Their children are in a room next door. It's not an adjoining room, so the children will sleep with the parents. Just so then you may have a family of 5 in one room, because actually they don't want the children in the next room. They want to keep an eye on them. It's a really horrible way to live. Christmas is coming. They're going to spend Christmas in hotels.
Not much has changed on the tower itself, but what has the council done for the residents who survived this disaster? One fact that's hugely complicated matters for the council is that the number of houses or flats that they're looking for has gone up by more than 50% since the tragedy, as groups of people who were housed in one unit inside the tower have elected to be rehoused in 2 or sometimes more units outside. That means what was originally a search for 138 new houses or flats has become a search for 210. Of that total, just 45 households are now in new permanent homes, 54 are in temporary accommodation, and 111 are still in emergency accommodation. That's typically hotel rooms.
Yeah, the door was locked, obviously.
That figure includes Antonio Roncolato. He was one of the last people to be rescued from Grenfell. He was trapped on the 10th floor of the burning tower for 5 hours. He shared his flat with his adult son. They will now be rehoused separately.
In terms of finding permanent accommodation, it's not easy. And obviously we have had our assessment with the council, with my housing officer, and there are some requirements that I have requested. And I understand that it takes time, and it takes a little bit of, we have to be patient. And also considering that moving into a place is one thing, moving into a place which will have to become your home is another thing. So for me, so it's like, okay, if I move into a place, it has to be something that I can turn into a home and I will be there for the rest of my life. So therefore, I might have to turn down 1, 2 or 3, I don't know how many.
Are the council putting any pressure on you to accept anything?
No, they are lately, very late, I mean, for the last 2 or 3 months, they've been very, very active in showing, in trying, and I must say I appreciate that. But in the sense of pressure, no.
It's understandable that Antonio and other Grenfell survivors don't want to be rushed. According to one housing charity, this is straining a system not used to providing choice.
We have a real crisis in affordable housing in this country, and we have a social housing system that doesn't give people any choice. Once you actually start asking people what they want, you then have to deal with the fact that actually it can't be delivered. So I think what we're seeing is a system that is not used to any element of choice and is very disempowering. Suddenly, when you're trying to empower people within that system and give them some choice, the system simply can't cope.
To provide choice, the council has put aside £235 million to buy new houses and flats for the survivors of Grenfell Tower. That works out at £1.7 million per original household. This doesn't include the cost of hotels, new furniture, resettlement grants and writing off rent and service charges in the new homes until June 2019. These are being paid for from another budget.
This is the living space and the kitchen, and then through here you've got 2 bedrooms.
The council showed us this place that they bought for a Grenfell survivor. It's in a low-rise block of privately owned flats not far from the tower.
We've got over 300 that we've secured for residents.
The Director of Housing wouldn't tell me what they've paid for it, but similar flats seem to go for around £850,000.
We still do have people in hotels, that's true. We've got 28 families with children under 18 in hotels now. 16 of those have accepted something, so they will be moving on, and we're trying to support them at the moment to do that as soon as possible. But we have got 12 families who haven't accepted an offer, so we're working as hard as we can with them to try and get something that meets their needs and their preferences. Because of what people have been through, most people want to live at lower floor levels. Most people would like, a bit of outside space. A lot of people want to be in the North Kensington area, not everybody. And we've got to meet all of those desires with the properties that we're acquiring.
But that doesn't include residents of the surrounding blocks who were evacuated during the fire. The blocks themselves were undamaged, although the heating and hot water systems were destroyed. They've now been replaced, and 2/3 of the residents have returned to their homes, but 109 households don't want to go back.
Some of them don't feel ready to return, for example, until the tower is wrapped, or some of those kind of decisions. So what we're saying to those people is that we will rent you a property in the private rented sector locally in Kensington and Chelsea for you to move into whilst you take stock of what you want to do next. And then we will work with them quite intensively over the next few months to see what they want to do. Do they want to return home? Or we've got a consultation out at the moment around awarding people points for priority on the housing register, so that actually if they feel that they can't be on the estate, that they've got the opportunity to move.
But that's not enough of an assurance for Thomasina Hessel. She shared a hotel room with her son Jesse for 6 months. She doesn't want to go back to her flat near the base of the tower, but doesn't feel there's enough certainty of what will happen in the long term to move out of this hotel room into a temporary flat.
They have not made me any offers, first of all, and they have made some of my neighbours offers and insisted that they make decisions based on this draft housing policy that they have going. And I think that's unfair because it's a draft policy. Anything can change. So anyone making a decision now is making it on something that may not exist in a month's time. So that's unfair. The reason for doing that, in my view, is because A, it saves them money to get people out by Christmas, and B, it makes them look good.
Is part of the problem, though, that in the initial rush to help, residents were led to believe that rehousing would take place at an ultra-fast pace? Here's the Prime Minister on this programme in June, 2 days after the fire.
There are other things we'll do as well to provide support for people to ensure they're rehoused within 3 weeks.
Today, a group of survivors and the bereaved from Grenfell arrived at Downing Street to remind the Prime Minister of this commitment.
We were given promises by Theresa May that they would be housed in 3 weeks. It's coming up to Christmas, it's 6 months. Thursday will be a telling day, and you know, if she's coming to the memorial service, we hope that she comes with a message of positivity and you know, things that have been accomplished rather than empty promises.
Nothing can change what happened here 6 months ago. Rehousing those who lost homes and loved ones is only the start of trying to repair the damage. But it's clear there's still a long way to go, even on that limited objective.
David Grossman there. Well, let's get some reaction to what we've just seen and look ahead to the inquiry, which has been meeting for the first time to discuss the parameters and how best to effect it. Emma Norris works at the Institute for Government and has been working on how public inquiries can be carried out most effectively. Cyrilla Davis-Knight is a solicitor for 13 of the Grenfell Tower families. It's very nice to have you both here. And Cyrilla, if I can just pick up on the back of David's piece there, what do you understand from your families is the hold-up with the housing right now for them?
Yeah, good question. Actually, I'm unclear what the delay is with the housing, actually. A lot of my clients whom I represent remain in hotels, in temporary accommodation, and it's unclear what the issue is with rehousing them.
Because the money is there. I mean, this huge sum, you know, £235 million has been put aside from the council. Are the people that you're representing very keen to get into their new houses? Where is the delay, do you think?
Certainly my clients are keen to get into their new houses. I represent vulnerable, some bereaved, and some were survivors. And indeed, they would like to be rehoused as quickly as possible. However, they're not prepared to accept accommodation that is inadequate or substandard to what they had.
And do you think they are being offered? So, I mean, it was very hard, wasn't it, to see those, you know, the apartments that we were shown the inside of for something around £850,000 looked incredible. But you think the stuff that is being offered is still substandard, or?
There needs to be a thorough means assessment so that my clients that I represent are given appropriate accommodation for their needs. Many of my clients, as I've said, are vulnerable and traumatised, and the delay in being rehoused isn't helping them. So I'm not sure what the delay is, but I do know that it's unhelpful.
David was explaining the numbers, that what started off as 138 families needed to be rehoused has now become a search for 210 households because they've splintered off. Antonio said his son wanted his own house. Some people have, you know, want to move out from parents or other relatives. So was that always going to be part of the process, or how does that work in terms of these increasing numbers?
I can only speak for those whom I'm instructed for. But what I would say is it's absolutely paramount that those affected by this disaster are rehoused as quickly as possible, as promised by our Prime Minister.
Emma, just look ahead for us to the inquiry. There is a lot of momentum at the beginning of these things, and I guess the key is that some of that actually drives through to results, right?
I think that's right, and you've picked up on one of the key issues straight away. And a successful inquiry isn't just about what happens at the beginning of an inquiry or during an inquiry, but what happens afterwards. And arguably that's where some of our institutions are at their weakest. What we need to see is the Grenfell inquiry come up with a powerful set of recommendations for change, but we also need to see government acting on those recommendations, and that is often where inquiries fall down.
Because is it fair to say that an inquiry has a, if you like, a dual role? It has to be emotionally important as well as a practical change. I wonder how much of an inquiry is catharsis and how much you actually need to see things happen.
I think that's a really good question. I'd say that inquiries are there to answer three questions. First of all, what happened? Second, who's responsible to some extent? And third, what can we learn from what happened? And those first two questions in particular speak to that. emotional catharsis that you mentioned, Emily. And I think at the moment the community is understandably a little mistrustful of the inquiry process. It got off to a slightly rocky start, although there are some signs that things are getting better. The chair, for instance, has appointed a community engagement specialist to the panel. But we know from past inquiries the dangers of failing to listen to victims and families. Hillsborough, for instance, Aberfan, examples of where there were real failures to put the victims at the heart of the inquiry process.
You've seen enough of these sorts of inquiries to know that they often don't deliver, right? I mean, you know, how many times we get to the end of an inquiry and the victims seem unhappy, the public is mistrusting, there is no sense that anything's actually going to change. Do inquiries really work? Do they solve anything?
Look, I think public inquiries are one of the only tools we have to look independently at some of the worst tragedies that we experience as a society. But you're right that they don't always lead to change. And I think we need to see government be far better at setting out how it's going to implement recommendations, and we need to see Parliament following up on that. If you look back, the 68 inquiries that have taken place since 1990, only 6 inquiries have received full follow-up by Parliament. We need to do better than that.
Cyrilla, when you look at what's coming in and your families, is there a sense of expectation? And
I think my clients are distrusting and their expectations are rather low, I have to say. And I think housing is one of the key points that needs to be addressed first and foremost in order to help rebuild that trust and confidence in the process that they're subjected to, they have been subjected to. I think there are other things that can be done to help rebuild the trust. There needs to be a commitment to their psychological welfare and well-being. The delay is unhelpful. This needs to start sooner rather than later, the inquiry. There needs to be equality of arms when the inquiry actually comes to start.
I wonder if you also think that the inquiry is up against a particular sort of difficulty when social media can sort of spread a sense of not trusting the right person or questioning the judges or questioning the figures. I mean, it can be a very useful tool, but it can also exacerbate people's worries and concerns when perhaps they don't know, right?
Well, I think that's where it's so important to make sure that you are involving the community and victims properly. If you look at the 2014 Hillsborough inquests, they used a process that put victims right at the heart of the inquiry. So they gave the bereaved the opportunity to talk about the people that they had lost as part of the inquest process. I think adopting a similar process in this inquiry could really make sure that victims are at the heart of it.
Because really, you suggested there is a sort of a sense of them and us, or two sides. I mean, are you going into this thinking that you're sort of doing battle almost?
No, I wouldn't say we're doing battle, but I think, I mean, it's clear, and it has been made clear, that my clients feel that their voices have gone unheard, they haven't been listened to, they haven't been properly engaged thus far. They're distrusting. Okay. They want the truth, they want justice, they want accountability, they want the answers. There's many ways that can be achieved. That can be achieved through disclosure. Disclosure needs to take place quickly of documents from the TMO, from the council, so they can feed into the process. They've lived this. This is their lives. This is their reality.
Thank you both very much. Thank you. We'll have more on Grenfell 6 months on over the next couple of nights.